my life was changing and I really wanted to get back into design, and I couldn't find my way back. I heard all the cliche stuff. Where's that gap in design? Where have you been? You're irrelevant. The moment that Jessica Alba slid into my DMs and asked me to make cookies for the Honest relaunch was the pivotal moment that I said, I'm going to be the next Sprinkles.
Welcome to Life is a Game, hosted by yours truly, Alexandra Nicole Stone. Get ready to uncover the secrets to mastering your destiny, becoming the main character in your life, and embracing a life filled with meaning and joy.
And welcome to Life is the Game. I'm your host, Alexandra Nicole Stone, and today we have Jodi Mannis joining us. Jodi is the mastermind, and when I say mastermind, I really mean mastermind, behind Good Vibes Cookie Co. And if you haven't had our cookies, they're these amazing, beautiful crystal cookies that are so stunning, you don't want to eat them, but then you eventually eat them and realize that the cookies are also amazing. I'm so excited to have you on, Jodi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I always love hanging with you. You know that.
Yes. So Jodi and I go back, but we don't go that back.
I was trying to remember today. Actually, it's been over 2 years now, hasn't it? At least
Time
2 years, right?
flies. I feel like after the pandemic, my sense of time is completely messed up because I keep thinking like 2019 was just a couple of years ago, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been like 6 years. So the time is skewed for me.
Wow. No, I'm right there with you too. I get it.
So Jodi, I know your story, and I think you really are a master of living life as a game. And I think that cookies, like you making these amazing cookies, is really a manifestation of that. But I just wanted to break the ice a little bit with you. Growing up, was there ever like a game that kind of influenced your mentality or the way that you looked at the world?
Games always kind of freaked me out because I didn't want to be in the spotlight. So, I'm still not a game player. Like I just kind of roll with my own things, do my own things, like find my own maneuver. Well, I guess one game that really stands out in my mind is like tag, because it was the excitement of tag, you're it, but then thinking, I don't want to be it. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be taking the lead. And it always freaked me out. So it's kind of an ironic juxtaposition to now be leading my own life, taking my own, like being an entrepreneur. I hate that word, by the way. Like, I really consider myself more of an inventor than anything, or like a creative. But the idea of like the game of tag is like really symbolic.
I think that's really interesting because I think for a lot of us, like we're wanting to be in the spotlight. Like we're like fighting each other, like pick me, right? Like that's like the traditional experience for a lot of kids. So for you to say that, oh, okay, I don't want that spotlight is kind of juxtaposing or like in contradiction to like what a lot of us feel growing up, right? We want so badly to be included.
Yeah, I don't know if I was a second child, I was the baby, I was the second child. I don't know, it's interesting. I'm really taking like a deep dive into like astrology and different things like that. And maybe it's because I am a Cancer and it's like you just kind of want to take care of someone rather than being taken care of.
Yeah.
There's so many levels of everything, but I think this whole like being in the spotlight, speaking on camera, doing things like this, it's really like pushing me to like step in and be brave and be the leader and be the one tagging, and saying, I want this, tag, you're it, tag, you're out, like taking control, right?
I love that for you. And the thing is, like, you are a risk taker. Like, I know a little bit about your story, and I'm going to totally ask you to share your journey with everybody soon. But like, you're a risk taker, and like you taking a chance on building your business, and you are constantly connecting me with other cool, like-minded individuals. Like, I think the more you do it and the more you start recognizing that this is who you are, right? The more you get comfortable in those spaces. Because this is nothing new, you talking, right? It's just a different maybe channel or medium, right? We're just channeling it in a different way than you're maybe used to.
Exactly. I actually just had an aura photography done for the first time. And an aura photography really picks up on who you are internally and like what the universe wants for you. I speak in that whole woo-woo language. But it's interesting because the Aura Photography saw in me the person, like I support people through my voice, through speaking, but the person is, oh, this is scary. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. But I had a meeting for work today and we were talking about just entrepreneurship and leadership and owning your own business and stepping into that light, like you said, and being the risk taker. A part of me, even when I was young, always wanted to take risks, but I was just sat back and did what society wanted for me. So when my life turned upside down and I made a conscious choice to make a conscious change that I thought was better for me, it included risk taking and it included taking the leaps. And like, it's basically like when you hit rock bottom, you can't go any deeper. So it's like, you're just going to keep trying, and I think that is definitely a part of who I am constitutionally, is knowing that even with tag, like if you're tagged and you're out, okay, well, there's going to be another game. You just got to wait your turn, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Can you share your journey? I like share that transition and share kind of like where you started out and how did you get to where you are today?
do you want the short, abbreviated version of the long version, right?
Do the version that feels right to you. I know you were in graphic design for a while and like that's what you were doing and your career shifted and because of life circumstances. So maybe you can start from there.
So, okay, I am a trained graphic designer, package designer, branding designer, based in fine arts. As you can tell by the cookies I make, they're really art. They're not necessarily desserts. They're in a weird, unique space. I don't want to say weird because that has a negative connotation, but it's a unique space and it's all of my own, probably going back to my education of, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts. I went the traditional route, went to a university and got my art degree there. But from there, I got a job as a branding and package designer and a graphic designer, actually in the fashion industry. I worked at Guess Jeans, but as I grew within the company, the Marciano brothers just took a really big liking to me and saw that I really understood the balance of business, but also art and how to meld it. And I want to say that's really my genius as a human, is understanding both worlds, but finding the sweet spot. And so from there, from graphic design, they went ahead and they promoted me and I became an associate designer, which is in actually designing the clothes themselves. And I went on to become one of the youngest head designers at the time, heading up like a $9 million part of the company. And I was, I think, like 22, 23 years old, something crazy. I grew as a designer, but I was still super young and pretty green in life. I went ahead and as a person, I got engaged, I got married. I took a step back from design because from full-time design, I originally left to start my own line. Again, the whole like entrepreneur thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of fell into the society role of wife, then mother. I always had a job. So I jumped from design to working in my family's court reporting business, which is in the legal industry, doing nothing creative, but still striving and thriving because no matter where I'm planted, I'll always grow. In that place. I wanted to be a participant in my family's life as my children were growing. So I had a 9 to 5 job because when I was designing, I could go to work at 6 a.m. and come home at 2 a.m. and just basically clean myself up and go back to work.
Yeah.
Sometimes because I loved it. It was a part of me. It was a thrill. It really gave me a sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. So when I was working for my family, I did freelance design on the side. So I never was out of the creative industry, but it just wasn't my main source of income, or most importantly, my main sense of fulfillment, because I wanted to be all the things, So from there, I ended up finding myself divorced with 2 very young children. My daughter was 8 months old and my son was 4 years old at the time. Thank goodness I was working for my parents because it wasn't an easy road through that transition, but I was still able to be present for my kids during not an easy place and time in life. All of a sudden, life was changing. My kids were getting older. My life was changing. And I really wanted to get back into design. And I couldn't find my way back. I was sending out resumes. I was being told, where's that gap in design? Where have you been? I heard all the cliche stuff, you're irrelevant. Where have you been? Like, how are you going to fit into the creative world now that you've been at home like a mom? No one would give me a chance. So basically, rather than a outlet of work, I ended up doing things for myself that filled my own cup. I started arc welding again. I was screen printing again. I was doing all the things that made me, which eventually in turn was where Good Vibes kind of was created from, because I was doing things that filled my cup, all the design stuff, but then in turn I was also baking at home for my kids. So I took the two parts of me and created a cookie, not for a brand, not for any reason except like for my kids for Valentine's Day. And that was in 2018, so that was about 6 years ago. So long-winded, here we are today, 6 years and still growing.
I love that, because I think, for some of the audience that's a little bit on the younger side, I think myself included, we think that shifting careers is such a terrifying, thing. Like, when you've already invested so much of your life into something, whether that's a career or something else, right? Like a passion. Maybe you've done acting, or I did bodybuilding for like 8 years, and that was like part of my identity. I don't do any of that
I had no
now.
idea.
Yeah, I was like a bodybuilder for 8 years or whatever. But then your attention shifts. And I remember, even for me, like leaving bodybuilding behind, I was like, who am I? Like, that just became, at the time when I was doing it, I wasn't even thinking like, oh, okay, this is part of my identity. But my Instagram feed, like all the content I was consuming, like that was what I was becoming. It became part of my identity. And so when I walked away from that, right, and I'm building this new me, it's scary. But in life, I think there's something really beautiful there, is that we get to choose. Like, we get to choose what we want, even if it's scary, right? You were in love with your career, but you chose to be there for your family, because like that was what's important for you at that time. And even if you didn't maybe take the time to, maybe even though you left your career, if you would have stayed there, you would have missed out on those like precious years with your family. So that's a courageous decision in and of itself. And I think you should really like be giving yourself the credit for that.
Well, it's really wild to hear someone where I look at your generation. Now I sound like an old lady. I feel as if, like I was born into a family where, the parents had jobs and that's what they did their whole life, and you didn't make changes. So I'm kind of in that in between. So it's very ironic for me to hear your generation is afraid to make a change. Whereas in my mindset, you guys jump at jump, and I'm trying to lean into that mindset, to be more flexible, you know.
I think that's like what we're all learning together. I don't think it's like my generation or your generation. I think it's just this time in history and this time in life where I think is like traditionally, and even me growing up, like I was raised and we were brought up, and many of us were experiencing that like life is linear thing, right? You study one thing. I mean, I was suffering from that at one point so much, because I was like, oh, I'm supposed to just study something and then I'm supposed to get a career, and I'm not even sure what career I want and who it is that I want to be in. How the hell are you supposed to know who and what it is that you want to be at 21 years old? When you're 17, you think 21, like 21, oh my God, they know everything. And then you're 21, you're like, I don't know anything. So how am I supposed to make that decision for myself? And I think one of the reasons that I started this podcast and that I want everyone to share their stories is that I realize that life is not a linear journey. It is filled with so many freaking side quests. Some side quests are like take a couple months. Some side quests are like 3 years long. And the objectives we have and the ideas that we have of who we want to be and what we want to become, like that is constantly changing, and it's okay. And I think like the final culmination of our true potential as individuals is the intersect of all those things. Like the intersect of Jodi being a mom, of you being a woman, of you being a designer, right? Like all those things, all those attributes, and all that, like all those side quests that you went on brought you to this current moment where you are right now. Or for me, it was like I was a gamer, I worked in tech, I always wanted to be a public speaker, whatever. Now I started this podcast and I'm a little bit spiritual. I think there's like a sprinkle of spirituality in this pod. Let's call it spirituality light
Yeah.
in this podcast, right? So like that brings us to this moment, and like that identity or that avatar or this character that we are is constantly changing and constantly evolving as we're getting more skills, as we interact with the world more differently, as
The
events
world
in our
changes.
life happens.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to change as the world changes, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that because the world changes so quickly, especially now, everything is fast. We as human beings, if you choose to do so and lean in, you know, some people are cool, like this is my road, this is my path. I always instill in myself and also in my children that you need to, like, life is about living, it's about growing, it's about changing, and like you said, it is not linear. You know, did I ever think that I would be baking for a living? No. Like, and I still don't really see myself at, like, I would never introduce myself as a baker because
Yeah.
I'm not. And
I didn't
that's
see you that way either.
no, not at all. Now, like, if anything, I'm like, I'm a rock star. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, you know, but the thing is, like, that's what the beauty of when you really lean into allowing life to unfold and really to look at it as a long journey. That really is where the magic happens, you know, whether you're spiritual or not, you know, whether you believe that you're being divinely guided, you know, whatever place, whatever space and place you live in, it's like listening to where your heart beats and following that rhythm, you know?
I think that's so important. And I think a big thing is that we're so guided by fear. A lot of the decisions that we make and a lot of the indecision, I guess like the amount of indecision present in our lives is because of that fear. But what I've come to know is that there's so much more fear in the what if I didn't take action on this. Like what if you didn't make those cookies? Like what if you never spent several years in design? Like what if you didn't become a mom and spend the time with your family, right? Like those what ifs are so much larger than what if I fail doing this thing that nobody's done before, right?
Yeah. I think about that quite often because actually, when I made the cookies initially, I made them for Valentine's Day, but my kids, I share time with their dad. So they were at their dad's house, and literally, I made the cookies. They were originally cookie dough cookies because that's what my daughter particularly likes, you know. And I literally made them and I put them in the freezer, and talk about like fear controlling you. I literally would open the freezer and talk to the cookie dough. It
Love
was
it.
like I knew that there was something bigger, but I wasn't ready to step into this space. And I'd open it, I'd be like, not today. And then I open again. I think I'm ready. And that sounds like the wildest, craziest thought, but that is just how I learned to navigate my fear. It's like saying it out loud. Maybe the universe was listening to me and hearing me. Again, this is where I navigate from because
Yeah.
I'm so, but I've learned now that I've gotten through so much hardship to the other side that really fear shouldn't control you, because it's like, it's, what is that saying? It's better a what if oops than a what if. And I like, exactly like you said, that feeling. If I can move forward without having regrets, now that I've seen what it feels like to make an oops, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I could bounce back from anything. Like I'm,
Yeah.
you know, like somewhat invincible, you know?
Yeah, and like fear is always going to be there. Like the fear is always like, and like the negative voice in your head is always going to be there trying to like talk you down, but I think your personal growth is realizing that, hey, it's okay. You can have your words, but we're gonna keep going forward anyways, right? Because maybe we're gonna have fun, fear. Maybe it won't be so bad after all.
We're gonna be friends with benefits, right?
I love that. On your journey, like when did you kind of have that like aha moment where you realize like I have free will? Like I can make intentional choices. I can double down on my dreams. Like maybe you weren't thinking about it this way, but maybe life is a game. Like actually, maybe you can play it.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. When did I double down and say, why the heck not, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Was when I initially, most current, like, there's been many pivotal moments in life. After college, I went to Europe. Why the heck, I actually received a grant from my college to go to Europe.
Mhm.
So it was, you're going to be there for 3 days, but they gave me enough money. Why the heck not? Why won't I go for 2 months and
Yeah.
backpack and explore? So there's been a lot of pivotal moments to get me to that point, meeting people and going on trips and doing things like that. But the aha moment when it came to the cookies was when I baked them and I made them, like I said, for my kids, and I put them on my personal Instagram. I had all my friends, which is a private Instagram, it's not like the whole world sees what I'm doing. And my friends were like, why the heck not? Or, like, why aren't you selling these cookies? Because I used to literally bake and put out a thing, cookies come over, and people would just come by and pick up cookies because I was baking for like therapy. That's a part of my own personal like meditation. So it was at the moment when I made my first crystal cookies, like I said, at Valentine's Day, and it was like, can we buy these? And I sat with it and I was like, well, why the heck not, right? So I decided that I wanted to do it my way. And rather than just selling a cookie, I said, I'm going to brand them and package them and do it my way. And that was when the game changed.
Mhm.
It goes right back there. It's like all of a sudden I stepped into my own, like I felt very strong in my grounding and realized that the parts of me who I didn't embrace at that moment were still really important things that I wanted to be intricate or integrated into my life.
Mhm.
So that is when I flipped the script.
Mm.
And that is when everything changed because my whole mindset changed when I embraced where I was and who I was. And I think that it really helps me navigate. Like I feel like I in my head I'm seeing like a game of Pac-Man. Like literally as I'm thinking about my journey to here, it's like, okay, when in that corner, shoot, I got stuck, but I'm gonna go find the cherry over there, right? And it's wild. Now I'm seeing like all these visual things in my head from your question.
I love that. Did the time it took you to reflect on, branding and packaging, like, was that something that you felt in yourself instantly? Or was it something that you're like, oh, I should sell them? And then the more you thought about it, like, what was that experience? Like, what led you to making that decision? And like, did you feel any resistance as you were coming to make that decision?
Well, prior to creating Good Vibes Cookie Co., I was actually looking to get back into the creative space. And, I was looking to be a blogger and I like a fashion blogger or a food blogger and all these things. And nothing really was working. Nothing was finding its space and its place because I just felt like it was such a saturated market. I said,
Mhm.
"Oh, am I going to be another mommy blogger?" Which, you know, no power, there's nothing wrong with it. It just didn't fit my moral compass.
Mhm.
Or, am I going to be a food blogger? Like, where did I fit into that equation? And so, in the process, I was even looking for URLs. Like, what feels right for me? What really resonates with me as a human, and how is that authenticity going to shine through? And when I created the cookies, everything just fell into place, literally, because a lot of the names I wanted for the other blogs were taken, or you had to buy them from someone for $10,000, all the things. But all of a sudden, I make this crystal cookie, and I'm like, this is what we all need. We need some good vibes. I was like, I don't know. Go on, Squarespace. Good Vibes Cookie Coat is not taken. I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, this is it. And it was that moment of like synergy. Like, this is my path. I don't know how long this is going to be golden, but right now it is paved in gold. And literally the cookies are paved in gold, right?
Yeah.
Surrounded in gold. So I just bought up all the URLs, like anything, Good Vibes Cookie Coat, blah, 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 without even thinking, without even doing, like, it was just intuitively, this was my path. And so it fell into place. Everything fell in the logos. I made, being a graphic designer, I design all my own stuff. And the logo, even the logo itself that I still use now, 6 years later, I made, say, 20 different versions as a designer. I picked 10 of my favorite. I asked one friend who is a creative director of huge companies. I showed him the list. He chose his favorite. I showed another friend of mine who is a badass businesswoman and owned a huge company, sold it, like did all the things. I showed her the logo and didn't tell either one of them my favorite. I asked them individually their favorite, and it was the same logo.
Amazing.
It was like mind, body, soul. We are right here. I am ready. Let's go. Right. So I do believe when things are right, then it's not easy, but it feels right. Nothing's easy. Nothing you want is ever going to be easy. There'll be moments, it's ups and downs,
Yeah.
but that moment, that point was like golden.
And I think there's something really beautiful in the Good Vibes Cookie Co, but like also this story is that you've learned you're a fun person. Like anyone meets you, like you're so colorful. I love like the t-shirt you made me that I got from you. Like you are such a bubbly, bright person. You're a fun person. So I think for you, it's also like I can never imagine. I mean, I can imagine you working in a legal firm, but like if you'd be all black and white, like this, it's like this. The color would get sucked out of the screen.
Well, to that point, my son is 4 years older, or 3.5 years older than his sister, and he remembers when I only wore black, and she only remembers me in all color.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting, poignant point because until I got past the darkness in my life, I wanted to live in the shadows. And now, by all means, like I'm a Cancer through and through. I like to be home. I like to have I'm not always on.
Yeah.
It's my rising sign. It's my Sagittarius rising that's more colorful and more outgoing. And it's just finding where I feel most comfortable. But I love what I'm doing. So I think that's where the vibrancy comes from, is the passion behind my purpose.
Yeah. When you find that fun, when you find that, like you said, the passion behind your purpose, it's almost like stuff just starts compounding, right? You like the more you do, the more you attract, the more you create, and you're like, oh my gosh, everything works out. Because also just like the way you look at the world around you changes. Because when you're in that space of creation, right, all of a sudden it's like everything that you see on the horizon becomes an opportunity, instead of just being like, oh, I'm just going through when you're just going through the motions of life, you're not seeing stuff the same way, right? But when you're feeling inspired, like you start receiving, you start getting more from the world around you.
Everyone's like, what do you want to do with your business? Where do you want to go? And it's really like, it was created on the basis of hope, giving myself hope, giving my kids hope. And as it evolves, I'm evolving, the world evolves with me, and I'm inspired to just keep getting better, right? As a human, which in turn makes the community better, makes my world better, makes the world better.
Yeah. When you think about sort of like these new realizations and there's this like new level of self-awareness that you're talking about, right? You're realizing like I'm the main character in this story, in this game, in this life, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all about when you realize you're the main character, it's like it's all about me. It's all about, and not in a selfish way, but it's about what you want and what you want to build and when you want to create. So now, like when I'm talking to you, it really sounds like you're in your power and like you're aware of that.
Right?
But
That
when,
is that's a turning moment. That's a pivotal moment this weekend.
yeah,
Sorry. Yes,
no
in your
worries, no.
power.
How is that like shaping how you're thinking about the future? So now that you're like in such a like this powerful space and you're also like consciously, right? Like you're investing in these different skill points, right? Like you're investing in these like character attributes. And now you're like, okay, I want to be, more front facing. I want to get out there, right? You just got your photo shoot. How do you see your life now that you had this shift in mentality and you're living in a more intentional way?
I think that as the brand has grown, as I've grown, I've grown together. I feel like I grow with the business as the business hits plateaus. I hit personal plateaus, and when the business hits setbacks, I also feel those setbacks. I'm not immune to anything, obviously, but wait, what'd you ask?
No
What was the
worries, no
question
worries.
you asked?
It was a long-winded question. It was a long-winded question. I was like, now that you've like stepped into your power, like what do you see the future and like how is being sort of aware of your power and like I'm the main character, I'm in the driver's seat. Where are things
Okay,
going now?
I remember.
No
So
worries.
currently, the position I'm in is not being a little bit more. Uh, I'm not afraid to take risks, but I'm also not afraid to step back and wait and be in the quiet. The quiet used to
Mm,
scare me. Like it felt like there was darkness. And so it's like I'm like that. I don't want to say cheetah, but basically, like I'm a cheetah, like, and I'm kind of like just being very quiet and very thoughtful, and I'm ready to jump and take that risk and do the next, do the next thing, be the next.
mm.
Like I have so many creative ideas swirling. I just know that I have to be mindful. I've learned for myself that I need to be mindful and to grow things at my own pace, but when I'm ready, I know I'm ready and just go. It's go time.
What does that like quiet time mean for you, or that we'll call it like quiet time or like time of this, like when things are not happening, because when things happen they're just like brrr, right? But what is that sort of more, what do those more quiet moments mean to you?
They're filled with every sort of emotion is what
Mhm.
they are, because I am a I work at a high level. I'm a high level of intensity. I think that's just my drive. And so when it gets quiet, it used to make me I was really scared.
Yeah.
The quiet moments are now time, without sounding so cliche, or time of reflection, time of meditation, time of check-ins, right?
Hmm.
Check in with myself, check in with how I'm feeling, if what I'm doing still resonating with me. There's many days that I'm like, am I still doing this? Like, are we still doing this? Are we
Yeah.
still committed? And it's like checking in with, and it's, like I am very lucky that I'm the kind of person that I'm okay being in the quiet, in alone.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't scare me. That I find that's where I grow and I feel most comfortable,
Yeah.
is in the quiet.
I love that you say that because I think an issue for a lot of like my peers or like something that I had to experience myself in the past is that when you're always wanting, you always want to do right. And then when you're not doing, there's a sensation of restlessness. Like, oh my gosh, am I a failure because I'm not doing? Or why am I not doing? And it's taken a little bit of time to realize, okay, then you cannot be in a constant state of output, right? You need those moments, those breaks to sort of recalibrate. And there's something that you said where it's like asking yourself, is this still what I want? I don't think enough of us ask that question. And I'm learning to ask it more and more, but I know I spent like the first half of my career like just trying to climb the corporate ladder and burning out and doing like two jobs at the same time. And it really took me getting sick and knocked off my ass. Sorry for lack of better
Yeah.
words. To stop and say, like, why am I even doing this? Like, is this even what I want? Like, why am I giving all my time and energy and all my creative juices to building someone else's dream instead of my own? And what is my dream, anyways? Like, I think maybe a lot of us are scared to ask that question. Now that in just talking to you and just saying that, I think the silence is scary because then if you ask those questions,
Yeah.
and you don't know the answer, then it's like all this existential pressure, right? Almost like, I don't know the answers, right? Like,
But
what do
what
I
if
really want?
what if you do know the answer too, though? That was the thing that I
Mm,
was facing was I'm not happy, but how do I get out of this space? How do I
mm.
maneuver through the space? It's scary no matter what, right?
Yeah.
It's scary not knowing, and it's also scary knowing, but how do you maneuver from that space? It's all a blur. It's all crazy, but it's like it's life, That is truly life.
But there's something in your story of like good vibe of like making the cookies and how you got to making the cookies that I think is sort of a testament or like there's a guide in there. And it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 type of guide, but it's and I think I found myself in the same place. But when you're in this state of okay, what is it that I want or I'm not happy, right? Like the answer is not going to be there. Like it's not going to be like, oh, like this is what you're supposed to do. But there's something that you did. It's like, okay, I just started surrounding myself and like doing tasks or like I started doing creating. Like you're a creator. You feel right when you create. So you started putting yourself in the state of creation, right? And in that exploration, and like, I'm just going to do things that feel right to me and things that feel good to me. And I think anybody that's going through trauma or going through burnout or going through, just a difficult time in life, like there's so much value. Again, it's like in culture, we're in this life, we're so like, oh, I have to be successful, I have to be young, and we're so focused on productivity. I wouldn't even read a book that wasn't about like how to better myself. I would never read I don't think I've read nonfiction for a long time. I just recently started doing it. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Not everything has to be about getting better. It's just some things could just be about like sheer just enjoyment, right? And so when you're putting yourself through that sort of you're changing your environment to start feeding you, then the answers start coming, right? You start seeing it slowly. You start having those opportunities like come to the surface.
Yeah. I think that it's ironic because you did mention the fact of age having all these things that you had to take care of or your responsibilities
Yeah.
and whatnot. I actually think in my personal experience that age has been kind to me,
Mm.
meaning I am more of a risk taker in my 20s, my young 20s. I tried everything. I took a lot more risks and then I got super mindful and conservative out of college, thinking, oh, I have this education and I'm supposed to do all these things.
Yeah.
But what I realized as I got older, because I started this company when I was 40, and I really had to sit with myself and look to people as expanders like Martha Stewart, like Vera Wang. When I wanted to start my fashion line, it was, you're a little old. Should you be doing this? And my answer was always, some of the greatest women of times, Diane von Furstenberg. Have you seen her
Yeah.
biography? It's amazing. And she did it later on in life, whatever crap that is, excuse me. But I feel as if when you're older, yes, you have more responsibilities, but you also have a lot of you
Mm.
know, like going back to your bodybuilding, you have a lot of calluses. So it's harder to break skin, like
Mm.
I'm harder to break now that I'm older, not because I'm set in my ways, but also because I've been through it
Yeah.
and I'm still standing and I'm still grounded. And I'm actually, maybe I'm not the norm, that I'm like, well, we might as well try it, and that was the thing, is when I started the cookie company, it was like, I wasn't putting all my savings into it. Didn't have millions of dollars behind it. Maybe that's why I'm a little more flexible and whimsical. Maybe it's the cookies, right? It's that too. But I think it's really a mindset.
Yeah.
I think that not everyone is meant to take risks, and I am totally here for that. I kind of navigate in a non-judgmental state, like, just be you. I think, and that goes back again. The reason why I chose to do this was because I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what joy felt like, and if it meant me baking cookies all day, all night, that is where I found joy. And that is really where I kind of maneuver all parts of my life now. And I mirror that to my children. I mirror that to people like you that I meet. And I mirror it in the cookies, and also the growth of the brand itself, doing the crystal readings. Like, the thought of doing crystal readings and the energy readings, which, you and I have done them numerous times now. That's actually where we connected, used to scare the shit out of me. Like, the thought of, like, my words kind of being, helping someone self leave them, because I'm just basically a vessel for the words. It scared the shit out of me. Like, what if I tell someone something they don't want to hear, or they don't want to see? But then I thought to myself, well, sometimes we need to do these things. I need to do it because it scares me. They need to hear it because they need to receive it however they're going to receive it. Right?
I
I
think
think I just take it.
No, actually, I'm so glad you said what you just said, because that's like the reason I've been burning to have you on this podcast, because like the whole point of life is the game is that you've hacked the matrix and you're playing the game of life on your own terms. Like it might not be like, I don't think it should just be like, oh, billionaires and CEOs and stuff like that, but like we all are, like, we are the architects of this game, and we're the main characters of this game. And like the at the core of it, like, sure, we're driven by things like we want to make more money or whatever, like we want to have career advancement, but at the end of the day, like, we just want to be fucking happy. Like, really, like, we just want to be happy. And doesn't matter like how you discover that happiness. And I think for you, like, the story you have is such a testament to that. Like, you found your happiness, like you carved your own path, you baked it, you painted it, right? Like, you took all this history, all these iterations of yourself, and you said, this feels right to me. Like, I'm fulfilled by this, I'm joyful by this. You're spreading joy in the process of creation. Like, that's what life is really all about. And I think your story is one that shows people like this is possible too. Take two things, like you alchemize those things, like that didn't exist before, right? And it's not like you came up with the most novel idea, right? But you just drew upon that inspiration from a lifetime, and you said, this feels right, this is good, let's go with this.
Isn't necessarily the me now. It's very interesting. The evolution of the brand itself is because, I couldn't imagine not being the one painting every single cookie. Like, I was to the point I wasn't sleeping. I was painting all these cookies, hundreds of thousands of cookies. And it was the me then really needed to be connected in that way. And the growth of myself within the brand, and the brand itself, it's an evolution, and I feel like it was a gift of life for me to be able to grow with it, because I have a strong sense of me. It's like, when I was a wife and a mom, like, this is who I was, and then all of a sudden I was no longer than that. So who am I now? And then I became, you're a baker, or that's literally, you're a baker. That's what people called me. And that's kind of the identity I took for a while. And it's a beautiful process. And when I kind of sit back and look at it now, yeah, I'm not, a huge company yet, like Sprinkles, not yet, but I'm on my way. And even hearing, Candace Nelson's really Candace Nelson's journey of sprinkles through sprinkles, she was doing exactly like I was at home baking. Did she ever think that at one point she would finally sell her company and let go of her baby?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting process in general, allowing myself to grow as all parts of me are growing, which the cookies basically are my third kid.
Yeah.
And I was saying today to another gal who I was talking to, it's like I am a full-time mom to that baby, right? The cookie baby, which I was holding on to them so tight because I'm not able to be with my human children. And so it's an interesting conversation and an interesting thought where I'm at the point where I'm watching all my babies grow. And as my son is getting closer to college, my daughter is going to high school, like I'm growing, they're growing, the cookie business is growing. It feels really good to sit back and see what they are creating of themselves and also what I am creating for myself and the cookies and all the things. It just makes like a really beautiful like rainbow, synergy.
I
So, yeah, that's tangent.
No, I don't think it's I think that's what it's. I don't think it's a tangent. I think it's what it's all about, right? Like this is your character development, like all of these journeys, even all this side quests. Like the cookies just started for you as like this is an outlet. This is something to move me forward. And when you started it, maybe you weren't thinking about. Were you thinking about making it into sprinkles? Like no, it just
No,
something
I
that
was
felt good to you.
I was gonna sell a few boxes. It was summertime, it was, about this time. My kids needed to go to camp because I needed to work my full-time job and I needed to make ends meet. I'm a single mom. I've been a single mom for 12 years. I'm gonna make some cookies. I'm enjoying it was for sense of enjoyment and for personal fulfillment at that point. Like, and but I think there was a pivotal moment when I had created my Instagram. I didn't tell any of my friends, like my personal friends. I told my family, like my immediate family, but I think I might have told 5 people, and all of a sudden I have 22 followers and I'm like so excited. Yeah, I have 22 followers. I know that sounds redonkulous.
Oh no,
And,
I'm going
but
through the same experience myself. I'm like, oh yay, one more
when you
follower.
yeah, it's like hitting little tiny plateaus, excuse me, little tiny plateaus, which, in this day and age, it's like people have thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, and it's just, again, it's a weird game. Now, when I started, Instagram wasn't what Instagram is now.
Yeah.
It really was like a visual display of magic.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky. That's how I've grown. It's all organic growth. And the moment that Jessica Alba slid into my DMs and asked me to make cookies for the Honest relaunch was the pivotal moment that I said, I'm going to be the next Sprinkles.
I love that.
At that point, there was no part of me that wanted to be the face of the brand. I just knew that the brand itself, the brand message and the brand's authenticity and that movement was what it was going to be known for. At no point did I think that I was going to be forefront and face forward and doing things like, the crystal readings or, being on the Drew Barrymore show. Like all these things just kept blooming and I just kept picking the flowers to make my bouquet, right?
That's amazing. That's what life is all about. And now you are powerful and you're a CEO. You're the CEO. You're the CEO. You're the lead magician. You're the mastermind.
Oh, magician. That I literally pulled that tarot card this weekend.
Okay, there you go.
Magician.
I'm channeling for you.
Yeah. Yes, you. And you said you weren't into the woo, right?
I'm in the woo woo. What does living life like a game mean to you personally?
It's so funny because you and I have talked about this, just in general, and I don't live life a game. Like I don't play games. Like I don't, meaning that's not how I necessarily navigate. I don't know how to answer that question, I guess. I'm not a game player. I just play by my own rules and So maybe that's what living life as a game is just playing by your own rules, what feels the best to you, what fills your cup. I don't know. There are no rules in my game, you know? It's letting the journey lead you rather than you leading it, the game of life.
I love that. The game's rules is that there is no rules.
There are no rules.
And the only rules that you make them for yourself, and you're designing this great and wonderful life, right? I think that's part of it is like, I'm the designer. Like, I'm designing every aspect of my life and taking ownership of that, right? And that's what these like amazing cookies are. And I think if anyone can take anything away from today's call is that you're the designer in your life, right? Like, you can make the rules. If you don't like some rules, say fuck that. That's unacceptable, right? If someone turns you down and says you're irrelevant, you show them otherwise. Like, you do you, and there's so much value in that. And like, whatever that you doing you is, it's take some time, foster it, discover it, because we all have that in us. Like, that's in you, that's in me, that's in everyone. And even if you're not the CEO of a business, right? Or if you're not growing a business, like, find what that is. Like, everyone should have that. What is it me doing me? Even if I'm living a whole corporate life, like, what does me doing me actually mean?
Well, and that's the thing is this really and truly, like, I never thought I would be in this space. The space was kind of a poignant space for me to be in for myself, but also for my kids to do it your way and do it unapologetically and do it authentically and do it to the fullest and at capacity. When you think you're at capacity, keep trying. And if you fall, get up again. And why, like that basically is like who I am.
Yeah.
And how I want them to view the world. So it's really important for me to navigate through that space. I'm one of those people, you know how they say, do what I say, not what I do. I really believe that do the saying, do as I say, not as I do. That shit is like, throw it out. It's like, if you want something to be a certain way, or you need to lead by example. So if I was to say, tell my kids to follow their dreams, but I was playing it safe and playing it small and keeping a corporate job after all those years, after I got past whatever I needed to get past, how are they supposed to know that they're allowed to give themselves permission to take up space and to move forward where their heart flows? So that was a really important thing for me, is like, if I want them to take risks and live the biggest life for them, I'm not telling them what that life needs to look like. It doesn't need to look like what I'm doing. And it could be a corporate job. It could be whatever that, but I want them to live the fullest life that makes, again, them happy. So
That's the best possible advice you can give. And thank you so much, Jodi, for joining me today and taking the time and sharing your story. I think people can follow you at Good Vibes Cookie Co. Is it Good Vibes Cookie Co? Okay.
Good Vibes Cookie Co. Yeah.
Follow Good Vibes Cookie Co on Instagram. See her delicious cookies. You can see the process of her making them, and I highly encourage you to try them because they're delicious and they make wonderful gifts. I wasn't paid to sponsor her, but I was like, you should know. They just make, if you don't know, a cool gift to get someone. Like, the cookies are like the best, special, unique type of gift you can get someone.
Or gift yourself as a ritual.
There you go. A gift to yourself. I gotta gift myself some cookies.
Exactly. Right. That saying, treat yourself. And also, shameless plug, we ship all over the United States, and also do the crystal readings, which are really special all over the United States, where you connect energy readings with something delicious. So got something for everyone.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jodi.
This is amazing, as you are.